Okay, good morning again. It's good seeing you all once again. I want to start with a few disclaimers. Oh, by the way, is it okay if I walk around? The person who's recording? You good? Okay, all right, thanks. Some disclaimers. Anything I say is not political. Okay, it's neutral. That's not my stage. All right. You might agree with some things, you might not. Bear with me through it, and we can talk about it. Okay. The myth of culture change in the fire service. You're going to hear me talk about some demographic things, some cultural stuff, and I need and want to hear from you. What I'm going to talk about is my story, and how it ties into this. I joined the fire department in '92. I left my first fire department job in '18 when I was in Howard County, Maryland. If you look at the Beltway around DC, Howard County is about 12 o'clock north on the Beltway. And I took the Fairfax County job, which is about 7 o'clock on the dial on the Beltway. They're about 45 minutes apart, although you're two different states, but you know the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. Lines are kind of blurred. You might know some things about the agency I'm going to talk about. I'll talk about their past, the leadership, the appointment, my appointment, okay, and some other things. Fairfax County has 2,000 firefighters, covers 400 square miles, 39 fire stations. On every day, there are 400 career members on the floor. Okay, everything they run is ALS. Everything is four-person staffed. You also know them as Virginia Task Force 1/USA 1. When the president picks up the phone, he has two fire departments he can call for international deployment. USA 1, Fairfax on the East Coast, and LA County, USA 2 on the West Coast. Okay, they love that. They're the elitist when it comes to that. They are so proud of it. So I'll say they, but you know what I mean. Those in that community, very proud of it, and they very well should be. With over 30 USAR teams to be selected to have the contract for international on both sides of East Coast and West Coast, they take it very seriously. Very technically and tactically strong. They know their stuff. The organization. They know how to put out a fire. They know how to do USAR. This summer, on any given day, I had a team in Haiti, in Surfside, and at Dulles Airport repatriating Afghan refugees from one fire department. Oh, and running fire department calls and putting on Band-Aids. Okay, so that's an honor that we take very seriously. But something happens, and you guys will appreciate it. Something happens when we cross our wires with technically strong and human intelligence strong, emotional intelligence, and culture. Okay, when you start getting high off your own supply, start drinking your own Kool-Aid, when you start believing I am the best rock breaker, therefore I'm the best person. And somewhere along the line, the wires got crossed, and we'll talk about that. In 2016, a young firefighter, medic, Nicole Mittendorf, committed suicide in the Shenandoah Valley. Immediately, some said, well, she did it because the department was bullying her, harassing her, and treating her like crap. And that took root. That wasn't totally true. Okay? It wasn't totally true. There's a lot that I can't expand on, but that wasn't totally true. And putting that label on the agency wasn't exactly factual. I'm not going to let anybody off the hook, but it was a broad statement that couldn't be substantiated to some extent. We'll talk about that too. Well, when the conventional wisdom was Nicole committed suicide because of how she was treated on the job, when that took root, and you're in the Washington Post market, in the media market, you know what happens? They go up, you know what, with a flashlight. Okay, and that's what they did to Fairfax County. Right, wrong, or indifferent. Let me tell you, Fairfax was no angel. The agency I have now is no angel. There's a lot of type A's. 2,000. I tell them at the kitchen table all the time, y'all don't need me. Why am I here? I got 2,000 fire chiefs. You guys got it all figured out. Why am I wasting my time? I picked up another mortgage. I came across the Potomac, the American Legion Bridge, found another home. I could have stayed up the road there. We had a good relationship in Howard County. I grew up in that department. I was the first chief that came through the ranks. I knew where all the bones were buried. I didn't have to come and take this very complex machine of 2,000 people, everyone with 2,000 opinions. So that's my tongue in cheek. That's kind of toned it down now after 3 years. It's not them and me, it's us. We're all in the same club. First year I can blame the guy before me. After that, it's mine. It's not his fire department anymore. It's mine, So we'll talk about that. All right, in 1982, April 1982, Fairfax County got hit. They got hit hard. 800, let me see if it's there, 600? 685 alleged claims of bias, discrimination, race, and gender. They got slammed, For 1982 money, 275 million. That's pennies if you're using today's money, right? But that's what they got hit with. 685, a consent decree. Okay? A consent decree says anything you do must be approved by the United States Department of Justice. You probably can write your own policies right now on how you hire, fire, and recruit within state laws and local jurisdictions, okay? Imagine those toll gates and then the U.S. Department of Justice. It ain't policy. It's not policy when the fire chiefs put a signature on it. It's policy when the U.S. DOJ says it's okay for the fire chief to put a signature on it. Since 1982. So the morning after I was sworn in, I asked the county exec, I said, get the federal judges, the lawyers here from DOJ. My first meeting as fire chief was with the lawyers from the US DOJ. That was the morning after I was sworn in. Their lawyers, our lawyers, me, the county exec, some others, we talked. They gave me a whole lot of history. They gave me a lot of history on the Nicole Mittendorf case that had been embargoed until I was on the inside, and they could tell me. And they also told me about the consent decree. I asked a question. What's it going to take to get from under this thing? What's it going to take to get from under this DOJ consent decree? And I still remember the lady sitting right across from me in the long oval table, and she chuckled and said, we'll send you a checklist. I wish predecessors had asked for it. I don't believe that. I don't believe since 1982 nobody had asked that simple question. I think intuitively you would have asked that question. So what does it take to get from under these things? Well, there's a lot of work that had been done before me. There were some things we had to clean up. Okay, and I'll talk about them. We'll get into the granular. Before I forget, I want to stop here and say, this is not an East Coast issue. It's not a West Coast. It's not a big fire department issue. Okay, it's not, Missoula versus DC. Each and every one of you have an Achilles heel in your agency. It may not be race, it may not be gender. It may not be retaliation, bullying. It may not be what things are. So please take those layers off. You have an issue. You can admit it, you can choose not to admit it. You're lucky you're not in the Washington Post media market. Okay, to put it that way, because your small issue becomes amplified, super big, But no one in this room is clean as an agency. And that's all. If there's anything else you take from me, okay, please take that to heed. All right, so July something, I forget the date, July, I get announced. I was appointed July of 18. I started the job September 1. Typical thing that went up on the Fairfax County websites, just simple bios, probably cut and paste, the same thing we have in the program today, So that was that. I broke the news to Howard County I was leaving them. It was a messy breakup. They didn't see it coming. They weren't ready to let me go, and I'm not being conceited. It was, I was the son of the soil. I was one of theirs. We got each other. They liked me. I liked them. I could navigate. I was there as a fire chief for 5 years, and without being conceited, I probably could have done another 10. And everybody would have been cool. It was one of theirs. It was one of their guys, they walk in, hey, that's John. John used to be with me on Engine 3 back in the 90s or whatever. It was comfortable. So for me to say I'm leaving, I wasn't being fired. I wasn't spending more time with the family. I wasn't, taking care of a health issue. I was leaving because I wanted to leave on top, and I also wanted to leave where I had met my requirement of building a bench to take my job. When the county exec asked me, he's like, gosh, John, I can't believe you're leaving us. So who's going to do your job now that you're leaving? And I took out a Post-it, a yellow Post-it, yellow Post-it, and I had 6 names on it. And I said, these people can do it. And I handed him that Post-it. And 5 of those 6 people are fire chiefs or have been fire chiefs somewhere else right now, okay? So I only bring that up, again, I'm not gonna spend a whole lot of time fluffing myself up here, but I wanted to leave on top. Me and the agency was good. We're good. I'm going to a place that was not good, all right? And that was part of the attraction. I'm a fixer. I'm a coach, okay? You're the 32nd team in the NFL. All right, how are we going to get you to where we had Howard County, Maryland? I want to get in because I do believe to my core, it's all about the leadership. It's always about the leadership. It's always about the leadership. Bottom line, people are people. They don't get in their cars, drive 2 hours to come to work to be jerks. Unless jerkism, that's a word I just made up, unless jerkism is normalized. If it's normalized, then that's what people do. They'll come to work and be that. So I knew this department that I just bragged on, USA 1, and they were the cat's meow. I mean, how many fire departments got C-130s and helicopters to take them to the Caribbean to do rescue work? So I was real happy to take on this coveted gem that had just kind of lost its way, is how I saw it. Well, and that hit the paper, July 11th. Boom, boom, boom. Not too long later, something else hit the paper. Then it started, then it got real. And then we started getting real. There was a website, a dark website that existed for a long time called the Fairfax Underground. It's got nothing to do with Fairfax County. The owner, lives in Fairfax County. All right, it's this dark place that right now, if you took out your phones, you could go on Fairfax Underground and post a statement and say, hey, I'm in downtown Tysons right now, and whatever. But you're not. You're in Missoula. This thing is so wide open, it will never show your IP address, phone number, name. It's like the devil's website, okay, pretty much. You can say anything about anything and no crumbs. I tell you this because we have expended money and resources. The ATF, the FBI, we've put the ATF and FBI behind this thing. And there's no way. You could be in a cave in Afghanistan and write something and say you're in Fairfax. And there's no way to prove it or disprove it. It's called the Fairfax Underground, right? On this page, and this is where the Mittendorf connection came. There had been, before her death, a lot of really nasty things said about her. Okay, a lot of nasty things when she was alive and then when she was dead. They even in death, whoever, were still taking shots at the poor young lady. Okay, so I come on the picture and then the target turns to me, which is fine. Oh, wait. Okay, yeah. So again, the Washington Post, but I'll pause here. I think the font's big enough, just so you can quickly read some of what was in the Post. All right? So whoever this reporter was somewhat courageous and was edgy to put. I don't think it was in an op-ed. I don't think it was an op-ed that to go on record as saying those things. Whatever. So it didn't bother me. It didn't bother me. People ask me all the time, when you read that, when you saw that, did it bother you? It did not. It did not. Okay? I've had austere conditions. Okay? That wasn't one. All right? What bothers me is a 7.62 missing me by 2 inches. Okay? A bullet. Okay? Or having to sleep in mud in the Panama jungles. Or not taking a shower between November and March in the desert. Those bothered me. This didn't bother me. I'll tell you who it bothered, which I guess it did bother me, was my 20-something-year-old kids who hadn't grown up in this kind of. This tore them up, that people were talking about their dad like that. And that's what bothered me. But me personally, I actually, it kind of said, I made a right decision. I made a right decision to leave Howard and go here. That same month, that July month, I had lost a firefighter in a fire in Howard. Nate Flynn had died July 23rd, 11 days after I accepted the job. So, talk about, push-pull there. But I'm not going to spend too much time on that. So a couple of screenshots right out of the Fairfax Underground. These are actual screenshots, as you can see. We have no idea if this has any connection to the agency that I'm so proud of and was. Didn't matter. Somebody was using that platform to be vile and just not productive. So let's talk about, okay, we'll move on. It's the day after the job. I'm in uniform now. I've taken the oath. All right. In that oath speech, I made some things very clear. If anybody ever wants the oath degree, I've got the transcript, but I didn't. For time's sake, I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I spent a lot of time here, mission and values, and culture. I talked about we're going to get real. We're going to get real. We're going to get real. Okay, the candor, and we're going to build healthy teams. If you're not healthy teams, you're going to leave. You're going to leave. And when I took the job, I asked the county. I said, "You got a line item? I need you to park some money over here." Well, what do you need money for? You guys got a ton of money. I said, "This money is going to make some bad eggs go. I'm going to buy them out. They're going to run, okay? I'm going to either make people retire, help people retire, or fire them, okay? But I got to catch them. How do you kill a cockroach? With a sledgehammer. I just needed one. Okay? But I had to kind of reestablish some guardrails. So you size up the organization, whatever the size is. And I went out on a listening tour. We all do that. When you take the new job, what does the new fire chief do? You go on a listening tour. And I did. And it wasn't as bad as I thought it was outside. It didn't feel as bad. Okay? It didn't feel and sound like that underground, the people I met. The units, just like your companies, you can go into a station for dinner and you can tell this is a high-functioning, healthy team. And then you can go the next day, different shift, go to that same table and go, oh, this got to get busted up. It doesn't take long, And that's what I saw, consistent with any organization. What I saw in Fairfax was not different from what I saw in Howard or where my buddy in Baltimore City was dealing with, or John, at the time, Greg was dealing with in D.C. or wherever. The fire department, firefighters are firefighters. Good ones, not good ones. Okay, there was no Fairfax brand. Okay, I remember going out one night to a firehouse, washing my car. I was there for like a month, and I snuck into the back, took the hose, washed the car, and I was going to sneak back in the car and leave because it was like 9, 10 o'clock at night, and somebody saw me out the window, grabbed me. I had to come back in. We had coffee. I ended up staying at that firehouse till like 2 in the morning. Around that kitchen table from like 10 to 2, and we got real. We talked about some real things. We talked about things that they had never openly spoke about. Race, gender, inclusion, acceptance, belonging, really belonging, and so on. And I remember leaving, and a young lady, mid-20s, probably on the job 2-3 years, she walked with me outside, and while we were walking to the car, she goes, "That's the safest conversation I've had since being here." She said, "That's the safest conversation I've had since being here." That's all I want, okay? I don't want us to agree, disagree, or whatever. That's not important. But how do you feel? Do you feel safe? Are you safe to disagree? Do you belong? Are you accepted? Your opinion accepted? Diversity, you can check a box. We know that. You can check a box and put somebody at the table. Oh, look, got a black guy sitting at the table now. Hey, we're good. We're progressive. But how's that person feel? Included, belonging, checking the box ain't the John Butler style. I've had 9 number 2s, 9 assistants or deputies or whatever you call it, 9 number 2s between Howard County and here. 5 years in Howard, 3 here. 8 years. As a fire chief, I've had 9 number 2s. They've all been white men. But I tell you what, them guys been through an audition. Their cultural IQ is better than mine. They call me out. Okay? They call me out because I am judging them not by the color of their skin. Sounds crazy quote, okay? But who they are. 9 number 2s in 2 agencies. And they can hold a candle up to anybody when it comes to being all these things, all these words. Okay, I'm not checking boxes here. That's talking about keeping it real. All right, so we talked about some of the immediate needs, opportunities, strategies. I had to learn quickly the organizational structure. Had some commonalities with any metro department, although some were different. Okay, and building trust. I made, when the county executive and the board hired me, I said, "What do you all want? Why'd you hire me? You had 8 people. Why'd you hire me?" "Well, you'll figure it out." Well, nobody gave me an answer. Nobody would say why they hired me. We'll see what you can do. Why did you hire me? And I said, "Did you hire me to fix the woman's problem? Did you hire me to fix the race problem? Did you hire me to fix the overtime? Tell me why you hired me." You'll figure it out. So I stopped asking. And I said, why am I asking them? I didn't get here by an accident. I know how to do my job. So let me go to work. Let me go to work to learn the organization, the culture, the psyche, and the heartbeat, somewhat what's in the title, the heartbeat of this organization. I need to walk around, listen, close my eyes. Close your eyes so you can really listen, sit at a different table. And I would go to places and venues, retirement parties, when I was new, and just kind of hang out in a corner. Just kind of feel things, to kind of get the psyche and the culture. And with building trusts. When I got there, 2 of the 3 number 2 positions were vacant. I say again, 2 of the 3 number 2s were vacant. And the county said, if you want to go out and bring some friends to help you fix this thing, we're okay with that. And I sat in the first staff meeting and told them, I'm not bringing anybody with me. It's just me and Sue. I brought Sue with me. Sue came with me from Maryland, my assistant. So I'm not bringing any other chiefs with me. You're here. You're in this room. I'm going to find you. I'm going to find the good ones. I'm going to find you who wants to help me build your agency. The easiest thing I could do was go bring a couple of my golf playing friends who had retired from somewhere else, pull them out of retirement out of Florida, okay, or the Carolinas. Hey, come on up here. I got this $220,000 job for you. Just kind of hang out with me. I didn't. Okay, it was just me and her, Sue. Sue took over as my chief of staff, and I went sniffing for talent. I went sniffing for people, not talent of how good you can break rocks, throw ladders, or pull hose, but human intelligence, human talent. And I pulled 3 great young men in their mid-40s who are number 2s now. I tell people I could get on an airplane right now, go into Australia with no connection, and those 3 guys have the nuclear code to run the department. They have all of the cards that I have. There is no secret I have, that they don't know. Okay, that trust, and they were operational essentials. There was operational folks. I pulled one out of the South Side battalion chief, pulled another one out of special ops, and I pulled one out of EMS. Not intentionally, but that's how they were street guys. They were street ops. Okay, and they had the ability to have bandwidth. And I watched if they had empathy, how they treated people. Okay, they were actors for a while. They went from battalion chief to number 2s in short order. Okay, and the organization complimented me on that. Over the months, over the years, they're like, you couldn't have picked 3 better folks. Across the board, all demographics told me those were good picks. But it took a while. I ran short without those people and left those vacancies until I had the right person. So we talked about change plan. I'll give you some examples of change. We had a thing called Captain 2. We have a rank called the Captain 2 position, the Captain 2 rank. There's a Captain 1 and Captain 2. Okay, it's progressive. You're Lieutenant, Captain 1, Captain 2, Battalion Chief. Okay, makes sense. To become a Battalion Chief, you have to be, obviously, a Captain 2. 2,000 people in the agency. How many Captain 2s do you think we had? 38. And 38 Captain 2s who were planning on going nowhere. They weren't chief officers and they weren't company officers. They were station commanders. I'm a Marine, right? I'm a military. They were the warrant officers. Kind of an officer, but not an officer. Sergeant Major. You can't tell me what to do because I'm the old head, and so on. You understand the scenario I'm painting. 38 Captain 2s. The only way you can become a chief officer is by being a Captain 2. The 38 weren't planning on going anywhere. So what do you have? Stagnation, a clog. That Captain 2, who was the station officer, that's really where the culture was made or broken. You follow me? Those 3 shifts that work here at Company 3, I'm the Captain 2 here. I make it or break it. The good ones made it. They grew really good people. The not so good ones didn't. You see these little enclaves of differences. I looked at it, thought about it, processed, and checked the law. You always got to know the law, before you do things. And we combined the Captain 1s and Captain 2s. By the way, the job description of the 1s and 2s, there are about three sentences that separated them. About 3 sentences separated 1s and 2s. So we combined Captain 1s and Captain 2s. We went from a 30-person list of candidates to 90 people. Okay? We didn't change any test, and I'll keep saying that so I want that to sink in. This was not lower standards. This room needs to understand that. We didn't change one thing. Okay? Remember, there's a consent decree. You can't just go changing stuff. There was not one test change. There was not one wink, wink. We're trying to get diversity, so let's lower that conventional wisdom. None of that happened. None of it happened. When you put apples to apples, the Captain 1s were most often, obviously, a little younger, more educated, bachelor's degrees, masters, all letters behind their names. We had a psychiatrist and a couple of others, okay? Aviators, you name it. And it was just a robust list, okay, by combining the Captain 1s and Captain 2s. Remember, the 1 or 2 differences between the 1s and 2s, the Captain 2 says, shall manage the station. That probably was the biggest separation. So my thing was, all right, if we have A, B, and C captains, and you guys divvy up the work, that's one of our core values, shared leadership. Shared leadership. A, B, C shifts. You 3 get your heads together and figure out what you're going to do, what you're going to do, what you're going to do. All right? If you want to choose who's 1 inch taller, you can do that. But I'm not going to make a special rank for it. Okay? You can decide who's 1 inch taller between you 3. So when I'm trying to build that post-it that I did in Howard, I have a robust list, all right? Or else I'm looking at the 38 people who choose or not choose to be battalion chiefs and move on. So, robust list, and that's the summary. That's one example. One example of some things of being disruptive innovation, asymmetric thinking. Ask the tough questions, I had a fire chief that I worked for in Howard where he always said, if it was working, I wouldn't be here. And that simple statement stayed with me for a long time. People don't change leaders if it's working. If it's working, I wouldn't be here. They wouldn't have put a job out. They wouldn't have asked Chief Bowers to retire. They would have kept things going the way it was. Something was not working. That's why I left, and came over. So, it was a tough pill for many to swallow, especially 38 Captain 2s. Some of them succeeded. Some of them upped their game when they looked behind them and there was a herd of youngsters coming at them. You're like, oh crap, there's not safety in small numbers anymore. There's 138, not 38. I better get my game tight. The tide, you know what it did to all the boats, okay? And a good number retired. Like, nah, this place is going to hell. Hell in a handbasket, and all those kind of languages, but they left, some left. So key promotions, build teams, accelerated the learning curve, okay, again, kind of like the Captain ones and so on. Long-term needs, we talked about sustainable change plan. Remember I said that we had a medic on everything? I told them in the first year, that's not sustainable in society today. What? What are you talking about? We always did. That's not sustainable. So now they're starting to realize that there's a EMS system that requires ALS and BLS. We can't sustain 110 medics on the floor every day. You can't sustain in some of 2s or 3s. They're not there. Where are these medics in the U.S. Fire Service? Somebody, if you have, I'm going to leave my please email me. I need to find them. There's an island of medics looking for jobs somewhere in the Pacific, and we just haven't found that island yet. There's got to be, okay? But that's a challenge for all of us in this room who does EMS. So we talked a lot about different change plans. I want to continue and paying attention to time. So the employee groups and the FCEIC, the Fire Chiefs Equity and Inclusion Council. The Fire Chiefs Equity and Inclusion Council. Operative words, the Fire Chiefs Equity and Inclusion Council. What I wasn't going to do is let the tail wag the dog and the employee groups tell me, there was a women's group, there was an African American group, there's a Hispanic group, there's an Asian group, there was another group, there was another group, there was another group. I said, well, you all have probably good noble intentions, but the very thing you're trying to do about equity and inclusion, you're not doing. It's contradictory. You say you want equity and inclusion, but you are these homogenous groups. So I take that back. I take that away from you. I'm the chief equity officer. Not the employee groups, it's me. I'm the chief. Why did you hire me? Nobody can tell me. Well, let me figure it out, okay? I'm not gonna abdicate my responsibilities to an affinity group. Their race problems, well, let the employee groups that manage race problems handle it. No, if there are race problems, I handle it. They're, gender-driven discrimination, I'll handle it. Fire chiefs love to distribute this stuff. Pass it off, put it in somebody else's inbox. It starts and stops here. So, and like I said, the FC is the most powerful part of that. You don't have to pay dues. There's no governance. We don't have a president, treasurer, vice president. There's no dues, okay? Their charter in policy is to put eyeballs on every policy, looking through an equity lens, okay? And they do a lot of other things. If you want their charter, I'd be happy to send it to you, okay? But they meet with me regularly. I don't know, it's 4 or 6 weeks, and we chew on things. When I constituted them, I asked them Socratically, what do you think you all should be doing? What do you think you all should be doing? Oh, by the way, it's not, like I said, only minorities, all right? There are a decent amount of white men on there, and I specifically say white men because other than that, everybody else, has a group, if you will, So there are white men there. I need the white men on there, okay, to change this gerbil wheel that we're all on. Things are bad, and why is it bad? Because y'all made it bad, you white guys. So everybody has a place. The military and veterans group has a seat at the table. Who's the largest employer in the U.S.? The military. Who's the most diverse employer in the U.S.? The military. So they have a seat at the Equity and Inclusion Council. They've been doing it right for quite some time, believe it or not. It didn't take them, it took them a while to get there, but they're doing it pretty good, the military in general. So there's a lot of good stuff happening there. We stood up an equity officer, which I gotta say is different from an EEO officer. Okay, it's not that. Okay, an equity officer, it's almost, I took the safety officer job description, replace word safety with equity. Okay, what does a safety officer do? Who gets to walk around the department unrestricted? Safety officer. Okay, I don't need an equity referee. That's not what I'm looking for. But just simple things, simple things, you can pick up, and it's more outward facing. I realized early that the police had great relationships with the NAACP, the Latinos, the this, the that, the other. The police department had great relationships. Why? Because they've been under a little, scrutiny. So they had gone out of their way to make these relationships. And I told the equity officer, hey, go to your police counterpart, find out all the people they have coffee with in the community, and do like they do. Yeah, we're not, messing with people's civil liberties per se, okay, but we should also be doing the handshake with all these entities in the community. We need it for recruitment. We need it for a number of reasons. I could go on and on. So the equity officer is more outward facing. And I'm not going to spend too much time on the one Fairfax, which is kind of like, Fairfax is a very interesting community. Okay, that's where ambassadors, congressmen, senators, presidents, Pence just bought a house in Wolf Trap, and everything else. They're all there. And then you get in the car, you drive a little down Route 1 onto Richmond Highway between Fort Belvoir and Quantico, or in that southern part of the county, and you have people under the bridge. Okay, the same community from the president to the people under the bridge. So there's a lot of emphasis on one Fairfax. You can't say you're affluent and you have that. So stop saying affluent or elevate them, one or the other. So there's a lot of work on that. I talked a little bit already. I'm not going to belabor the point about flattening the org chart. And I just used the Captain 1 and Captain 2 example. There are others, but for time's sake, I'll stop there. Transfers and reassignments. I got to pause here for a second and talk about this. Here's how transfers and reassignments worked. Let's say there's a battalion chief vacancy in the fire marshal's office. All right? I'm not a battalion chief. I'm a captain. I'm on the battalion chief list. I'm number 38 on the list. But the vacancy that nobody wants, if I say, hey, put me in, coach, I'll take that vacancy if you promote me, the person got promoted. Right? They were number 38 on the list. They were a captain. There was a vacancy in the fire marshal's office. They got promoted. They get there to spend 3 to 6 months and say, day work is a hardship. I need to go back out to the field. I need to go back on shift work. So what did you just do? Usurped a structure. Now you have a battalion chief in the field who would have never been made off that list. That list would have died. They would have died on that list. Okay? There was a distrust in the rank structure. There was the distrust in how people were promoted. There were a number of people, number 2s and 3s, who had made it that far up in the agency who had never ridden the front seat of a fire engine. Who had never ridden. I said, well, not this fire chief. They ain't how. Operations is the center of the universe. That's how I think. That's how I'm wired. It starts and stops in operation. It starts and stops. Everything else is support. No offense to support, because you need it just as much. The Marine infantryman needs support. So I can appreciate that. But operations is where it is. Okay, that's a street cred. Okay, and so we started talking about how people are made. You could be any number. You could be number 100th on the list and become a battalion chief, and you're on the street in 6 months. No way you'd have seen the light of day if we're going numerical. So I said, we're not doing that anymore. Well, how are you going to promote? How are you going to assign? How are you going to make transfers? Let's see, I'm the fire chief. I need somebody in the fire marshal's office. Let me think about that. And I think you do a good job. You're going to the fire marshal's office. You can't do that. I can. And it's not coming from a main place. It's a meritocracy. It's talent. It's values driven. Okay, that's how you become all these accolades you like, these platitudes, because you are who you say you are. All right? So it sounded very simple, but how do you put people in staff positions? You select them, and you tell them effective 6 months from now, 3 months from now. You give them, run-up time. You shall go there. Now we've kind of refined that. So I was kind of draconian with that to kind of break up that silliness that was going on. We've kind of toned it down a little bit. Now we've not politicized, but unofficially said, if you're interested in that position, come talk to me. Come talk to us. First of all, you have to be that rank. You can't be on a list. If the battalion chief vacancy, if it's a vacancy for a battalion chief, it's a vacancy for battalion chief, not someone on the battalion list. Okay? If you think that's something you'd want to do, come talk to us. And here's the human piece for it, with it. In training, I've had people come say, listen, I live in Manassas, I live in Winchester, I live in West Virginia. It's an hour and a half, 2 hours to come to day work job. That's tough, but I really want to do that thing. And so I say, okay, well, look, talk to the POC of that area. Maybe you do 312s. Maybe you come in 312s, and then 4 hours kind of work from home. That was before the pandemic. Now it's even more normalized. Now it's even more normalized, and which I'm happy about. If there's anything that can stick for uniformed and telework, I'm allowing a little bit more of that, especially in the staff roles. The other element is, okay, that sounds great, Chief, but I can only do it for 6 months because me and Mom are trying to have another baby, or baby's coming, or whatever. Okay, all right, we'll do that. We'll arrange that, and then when you're ready to go back to operations, I'll commit to you that you go back to where you came from. So we're meeting people halfway, all right? And it's going over well. It's amazing how many people want to do other things than but be in ops. Some people want to be trainers. They want to be arson investigators, code enforcers, whatever. But they didn't like the way things used to be, and they didn't totally care for my draconian, you're coming, liking it or not. This sweet spot we're in seems to be working well. So there are people there for 6 months, 8 months, 9 months. They do their time. They feel fulfilled. Honestly, if you could graph it, 9 out of 10 times they said, I wanted to come up for 6 months. But would it hurt your feelings if I stay for 2 years? Because I started this thing, this project, this thing, and I'm moving the ball, and I know, do I have to go back after 6? Hey, that's why it's not politicized, and we didn't sign a contract. Is it working for you? Is it working for me? Most important, is it working for the organization? If it is, then the answer is yes. If there's a no in any of that, then let's have a conversation, and that's it. It's a conversation between grown-ups. All right, transfers, mentorship. We spend a lot of time on mentorship, basic training. We have an officer development academy for every rank, for every officer rank. There's a lieutenant academy, battalion, captain, blah, 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 strictly for that homogenous group, because those jobs are different. All right, you can't just say we have an officer academy, come one, come all. So many of the things I'm saying, it comes with money, and where Fairfax is with that, and it comes with resources. So the things I'm preaching doesn't mean, hey, why aren't you doing it in your community? Well, everybody's different, but if you can leave here with some thoughts on that, it'll be fine. So I already talked about professional development, executive education. I have a line item for executive coaches. Not you, but I asked them, raise your hand if you'd like an executive coach to help you grow as a leader. Those who have, they get it. Okay, it's almost like EAP. You get like six sessions, and then we reevaluate or whatever. But there are a bunch of executive coaches bona fide, credentialed executive coaches that I make available for chief officers. Okay. I already talked about the Office of Development Academy. We spend a lot of time here. Here, role playing, okay? Every one of us in this room could find 3 to 5 scenarios, sticky, complex, awkward scenarios that happened in the firehouse or with a colleague or with a subordinate or with a superior that you could put on a 3x5 card and we could role play. So we have a Rolodex of scenarios, you know, how people treated each other well or how people treated each other not so well, and how we navigated those waters. Okay, so it's sets and reps. Being comfortable, being uncomfortable. Being comfortable, being uncomfortable as a leader. We talked about alternate work schedules. There were, in the climate assessment, there was a climate assessment and with the consent decree that said women are leaving the fire department because many can't do or don't or choose not to do the 24-hour shift work. Well, there's a fallacy in that statement. They could take the word women off because there were men too. There were men who were hoping to have schedules other than 24-hour shifts. Okay, they wanted to be in ops. They didn't want to go and do admin work. They wanted to stay in ops, but they wanted something other than 24-hour shifts. So it wasn't a woman's issue like the climate assessment tried to make it, okay? It takes 2 to have the child because it was, women with children want to be able to be there on the bus and all. And I'm thinking, John Butler back in the 90s raising a family, I was daddy daycare on B and C shift days when I was off. This wasn't, my wife was working downtown, you know. I worked shift work, got off, went home, made sandwiches, put them on the bus. It wasn't a man and woman, you know. So, you know, it's kind of condescending to do that. So we looked at alternate work schedules, you know, and there are a number of them. I'd be happy to get in the weeds with that. WLO, work-life officer. The work-life officer. That's a person committed, dedicated to the lactation issues, to the maternity issues, to the, and continue, and the work, and the alternate work schedule. They manage that, the work-life officer. They manage a number of these things. The same requirement to go back to work for someone who had a torn ACL last year was the same requirement for a woman who had had a baby 9 months ago. And what I mean, it was the same policy. It was the same policy. After 12 months, thou shalt get on the treadmill, you should do the CPAT, or what we call work performance evaluations, WPE. You shall do this in 12 months from the day you went out. Your knee was bad, it's been 12 months, your hip was bad, get on that sledge, go, you know, forward splash, blah, 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 blah. The same policy for injury was the same policy for natural things such as child development, childbirth, and recovery. You know, so you almost felt like, gosh, I got pregnant. Is that the same as me, like slipping on ice? And did I slip and get pregnant? You know, what happened? You know, what happened? But it had this connotation that it's just the same as an injury. All right, so we had to kind of soften that up and leave the door. We didn't write a special policy, but some of these hard lines were kind of taken out because there were women, okay, who in the 10th month were athletes. They were ready to go back, okay, and there were some who needed more time. It's not just leave the door open for that. Let people get healthy and better and recoup some muscle mass and all the things that happens after that, you know. So I only bring that up because those are kind of the focus of the work-life officer. You know, dive into everything. When I got there and I was reading the uniform policy, and it talked a lot about uniform, like everywhere, appearance and grooming. You know, I said, who wrote this? And they said, these 3 number 2 guys. I said, well, who wrote the women's part about the uniform and all? I said, 3 number 2 guys. Thou shalt not have hair that's bright in color. I said, all right. But then you read, tattoos are acceptable up to the neck, and you know, like, I've seen some very vibrant, I've got some very bright, vibrant tattoos. Like, who's getting into colors and vibrance with, you know, with hair and all? I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I don't think it's right for these 3 guys to determine the length of the skirt or whatever. So that's kind of the Equity and Inclusion Council / work-life officer. You just need some inclusion. Some of this is NA for y'all, for some of your agencies, okay, but when you're dealing with 2,000 people, you got to think about all of that, So I touched on the climate assessment. A climate assessment had been done before I got there. The county paid a lot of money for a company to come in to rake them over coals, but it was a great document for me because it was almost like a playbook. You kind of look at it and go down. But what's most important is, I said, there's got to be a scorecard. You can't improve what you can't measure. You're not measuring. And it's got to be outcomes. It's not what I think and what I feel. Okay? Are there measurable outcomes? Are there measurable outcomes? You can't say, well, I think we're Maine to paramedics. What does that mean? What does that mean? Okay? Give me something measurable, to work with. Is there an attrition number or whatever, So we talked a lot about that. And I touched on the consent decree already. I'm almost done here. The mission, vision, values, I told them, I said, every firehouse I walked in the lobby had something in a frame, the mission, vision, value statement. Most people didn't know it. More so live it or walk it. And I told them, from how we buy fire truck tires to how we promote, if it doesn't fit in our values, and we only have 6. We have 6 words for our values. Integrity, number 1. Integrity, professional excellence, community outreach, and every time when I try to do this, I forget it. And 3 more. I'll just leave it there. Yeah, there are 3 more. Listen, probe, listen. No rocket science there. Build a posse. I talked about the work I put into who the number 2s and number 3s are. That's probably the most work, most effort I put is who is in this room. That's it. I'm not here to change. I'm not here to change your patch, your collar pins, the color of the truck, the decal, the name of the department, what colors we wear, what we eat for dinner. I'm here to set up the leadership. And everything else will fall in place. All right? I'm not spending my time on the small stuff. I don't have a challenge coin. I don't have a challenge coin. I use the department's challenge coin. Okay? It's all about the department. It's all about the department. All right. Know what you don't know. Can't be said enough. The brutal honesty, not only with the agency, but with yourselves. Being able to say, I don't know. I don't have the answer. I'm a fire chief that's black. I don't have the answers. It didn't come with a manual. I need that posse. I need people to help me with this thing. Okay, I don't have any more than you do. Okay, absolutely not. Know what will compromise your actions. Let me see. Engage fresh eyes. Engaging fresh eyes, which went counter to what I said because I intentionally wanted from the inside. So what that makes me is the curious mind. I have to be the one. I'm a constant why, till the point where I see eyes roll when I ask this in staff meetings. Why? I have to do that. I can never get comfortable by asking. They know why. Remember, I said I came with Sue. The rest of the room are from inside. They're 20, 30-year folks. So if I don't ask why, they'll assume I know why. And that's how you just keep going down a continuous road of not complacency, but doing it the same way. Yeah. It's a lot of work, obviously. I've talked a lot about don't ignore the soft skills. I'm going to change that slide. I keep saying it every time I do this. It's not soft skills. It's the most important skill, the human skill. The tunes drop, the bay doors open, we race out of here, and we go out and we treat some of the communities undesirable with more civility and polite and tact and honor, and then we back into the firehouse sometimes and treat each other like crap. We'll leave it all on the field for the guy who just whacked his whole family fought the cops, kicked the dog. I'll say, sir, mind if we clean your hands? Mind if we're gonna wrap you? You look cold. Can I put this blanket on you? You know, and we'll come in the firehouse and dog each other out. You know, that's a thing. That's a thing. So we can't ignore the soft skills. It's not soft skills. You know that. Okay, it's human intelligence. It's spending time getting to know people and having empathy. Empathy for each other. Doesn't mean being a softie. You know when to be what. I met with every chief officer. It took me like 2 years. My first 2 years. By the time I had fully met with every chief officer, every one of the battalion chiefs, every one, and I took notes. And I was looking at those notes recently because I'm in my 4th year now, and I was looking at things that happened 2 years ago. There were 2 folks. The quote was, "Chief, you disappointed us. You have disappointed us." I thought when they said we were getting a Marine as a fire chief, that you'd come in here and be very Marine. Instead, you've been a soft ass. I remember, and there were 2 statements like that. And I remember saying, and I told one of them, I'm like, I'm the same guy that was in the Marines. Okay, nothing's changed. I don't know what your image is of Marines. You know, I'm the same person. I'm the same person. Conditions predict on how I behave. All right, and most of the time, 90+% of the time, I'm this. The other 10% is take the hill, evacuate, offensive, defensive, get off the roof. You know, stop working over a basement fire. 10% or less is the not negotiables. There is no why. Do it and do it now. But it's rare, you know. So I'm looking at this fella and saying, well, there's no way you could ever be one of mine. You remember that 2 years I was auditioning them. Like, if he thinks the world is like that, he can't be a number 2 for me, you know, and he's since retired. But I was looking at those notes where he said, we're disappointed in you. We really thought we were going to get a solid Marine in here. No, instead we got, you know, we didn't get the Marine Corps, we got the Peace Corps. Well, I thank you. I'll take that. I'll take that compliment. If that's supposed to be an insult, I'll take it. I'll own it. So anyway. And lastly, be realistic about change. It's a marathon, not a sprint. More cliche for you. I want to be able to sit under the tree that I'm planting. I want to be able to sit under the tree that I'm planting. I'm not going to do this heavy work and drag my tired butt over the finish line and let somebody else bask in the glory of how the organization was turned around before they got there. Okay, I eat well, I try to sleep well, I work out regularly, I try to have a balanced life. Okay, I have a healthy life per se. Maybe that's subjective. My wife would say otherwise. I don't know. But I try to be mindful on the long game. The long game. There's no good in doing all of this, and can't we can all enjoy it, if you will, you know, for the organization. So sustained, you know, I'm using the word change less and less, and I'm using growth. You know, when I do the why to the department, change versus growth. People will kind of walk alongside you with change, but we're human. We're human, and we know how we feel about change, you know, and our habits. I joke with the department. I said, you know, when I got here, there was a lot of people patting me on the back. Glad you're here. Yeah. You know, change this thing up. Until the change affected them to some extent. Okay? Like, fix all these guys on this side of the room. We're good over here in the 2nd Battalion. It's that 1st Battalion over there who are all the bad eggs, you know. So, but when you know, it's all good until you start mixing it up. And let's talk a little bit about outcomes. I'll pause this for a second. Remember, I said, I don't know why y'all hired me. This was not the intent. I wasn't hired to fix this. This wasn't broken. I mean, we could have sat here. We could have sat here and made the mark. The purpose of this, okay, is people are saying, I'll take the Fairfax application. Okay? I won't go to Alexandria, Arlington, D.C., Prince George's, Montgomery. I'll work here. You know? Mittendorf was still over our heads, right? People still said, that's not a place if you want to be a female firefighter, don't go there. You know, they bully and mess with you. All right? These are measurables. This is some of the stuff that we didn't say do any. I didn't say let's do this so we can do that and get that. No, let it just work itself out. If those numbers had never changed, I'd been okay with it. I'd have been okay if the numbers never changed. If the culture, if the environment was what that young lady said, safe. If the place was safe and the numbers didn't change, that's good. But it must be getting safe because people are knocking on the door to be part of that organization. Something that just happened in the last month. This is a first, you know. There's one slide that I'll add for future presentation, and it happened on September 27th of this year, which is less than a month now. On September 27th, a federal judge in Washington, D.C. dissolved the 1982 consent decree. And the quote was, "The past vestiges of discrimination and biases have been dissolved by all intents and practicality. Whereas and hereby the Fairfax County consent decree is now dissolved." September 27th. Thank you. The good team, they did it. There's a lot of people that did a lot of work. I only had 37 months of it. You know, I'm sure there are many that did many good things, and many that didn't help. But there are many that were crusaders who probably weren't being listened to. It is epic. It is epic to say, Uncle Sam does not have to tell you how to hire. You don't know what that means to me, okay? Now, I'll tell you something very interesting. Some of the minority groups said, well, I'm not sure we're happy with that. I'm not sure we're going to celebrate that. Like, why not? Well, because with the consent decree over this department, it held them accountable. I said, oh, really? Well, how'd that work out for the last 40 years of it being on top of your heads? How accountable was that? And I say, you know, have you ever seen or heard of the case, domestic violence, domestic assault? Well, he had a protective order. And how the heck you still getting smacked around? So just because the paper sticks over your head doesn't mean, you know, it doesn't mean much. People are going to be people. All right, I've taken up all the time. I'm getting the hook. Thank you all. Thank you for your time.